Shrieking protesters chase Graham to his car, he smiles, turns and destroys them. It is said that it is not power that corrupts, but fear. Fear of the loss of that power that corrupts those who wield it, and Washington, D.C. is scared to death. Deceit for the purpose of political gain is one of history's most recurring crimes. The only thing more frustrating than a deceiver and a slanderer is those foolish enough to listen to them. Yet every day we see evidence that with enough mental gymnastics, just about any fact can be twisted in such a way as to favor one's confirmation bias. In times such as these, the question begs to be asked: when honor and the law no longer stand on the same side of the line, how does one choose? Such is the conundrum of Rep. Lindsey Graham, a Republican from South Carolina, elected in 2003 to represent the 3rd District. Long thought by conservatives and those on the right as just another member of the establishment, it seems Graham has found his principles. He laid out his position on the nomination of Judge Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court, stating he has no intention of denying Kavanaugh a seat on the Supreme Court based on flimsy 11th-hour allegations from more than 35 years ago. Graham stated in no uncertain terms that he found the accusations made by Christine Blasey Ford against Kavanaugh to be suspect at best, and at worst Ford is a Democratic mole meant to undermine a legitimate candidate for the nation's highest court. Senator Graham on Judge Kavanaugh. Is there any presumption of innocence left in the confirmation process? If the accusation is enough, God help us all around here. In an interview, Graham stated to reporters, "What are they supposed to do, interview everyone in Maryland from the summer of 1982? We're talking about appointing someone to be in charge of the rule of law. I'm going to adopt the rule of law as my standard. If this were a criminal allegation, you would never get out of the batter's box, because you can't tell the accused where it happened and when it happened, and there's no corroboration outside the accusation itself. You couldn't sue in civil court for the same reason, you could not even get a warrant. So I will respectfully listen to Dr. Ford, but here's the question for me and others: what is the standard? What is it going to be? Are you really innocent or guilty based on the accusation? Is there any presumption of innocence left in the confirmation process? If the accusation is enough, God help us all. It's okay to challenge the accuser. I will respectfully listen, but if there's nothing new, I am not going to deny him a promotion to the Supreme Court based on a 35-year-old accusation where all of the facts that we do know about seem to suggest it didn't happen the way it was described. If this is enough to deny a person a seat on the Supreme Court who has otherwise lived a good life, then I don't know where this ends." Protesters and activists were waiting outside of Graham's Senate office building yesterday, continuing their efforts to railroad Kavanaugh. They ran from their positions on the side of the road with signs reading "Stop Kavanaugh" to heckle and harangue Graham on his way to his vehicle. Benny Johnson of the Daily Caller reports. The protesters were waiting outside of Graham's Senate office building protesting Supreme Court Justice nominee Brett Kavanaugh. The protesters ran from their position standing on the side of the road with "Stop Kavanaugh" signs to harass the senator on his way to his waiting car. The women yelled that Graham was despicable and needed to be kicked out of office. In response, Graham smiled and wondered aloud if the women were South Carolina voters. "We will vote you out of South Carolina," the protester said. Graham turned while walking to give the protesters one last comment: "Well, please move to South Carolina. Y'all be welcome in South Carolina," Graham said. The protesters attempted to surround Graham's car, screaming, "You old, white, privileged patriarchy." The protesters were themselves mature, white women. They continued to scream at Graham, "You have changed so much," as Graham's car pulled away. Then the protesters turned on this reporter, asking, "How can you work for him?" Graham said of the Kavanaugh vote Thursday that he is more confident than ever that he will be confirmed. "It will never be enough. If you don't believe he is a gang rapist, if you don't believe he is a stumbling, bumbling drunk, serial sexual predator, maybe you will believe he lied about how much he drank in high school. Threw ice at a party. Or he doesn't have the temperament. Let's vote. I'm more confident than ever." Eyewitness-based Lindsey Graham IRL. Graham was walking to his car. Protesters followed him screaming that they would remove him from office. Graham spins around, says, "Well, please move to South Carolina." Then looks back at me, smiles.